I'm Trevor Strnad of the Black Dahlia Murder, and this is Grande Rock. Stay tuned.
Trevor, do you want to give a little rundown on the Black Dahlia murder?
Yes, we are a melodic death metal band that began in Detroit, Michigan. We're on Metal Blade Records. We are approaching our 20th year of existence pretty rapidly here. And we just launched our 9th album called Verminous on Metal Blade Records, which came out last Friday. So lots of excitement, even though I'm locked down right now, just focusing on the positive and the new album right now.
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah, I got a good listen to it, and it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. So diving into that, which are the music similarities and differences between the new album and some previous ones?
I think some of the differences are stemming from our new lead player, Brandon Ellis. He came in just before the last record, Nightbringers, and he definitely added a lot of his kind of flavor to it. I think he has a more traditional metal aspect that he brings to the band, a bit more of a rock-based background too. And we saw a little of that come into fruition with Nightbringers. But with this new record, he's really like spreading his wings within the band, and you definitely feel that more old school metal influence creeping in this time. With a song like Wereworm's Feast, for example, there's a very kind of King Diamond vibe to the music, which is a new territory for us, a little bit more rockin' than what we've done in the past. But, this band is definitely a melting pot of all different corners of the extreme and all different corners of old and new within metal, kind of. And it's, we're fans first. It's all stuff that we like and we want to hear within music, basically, kind of Frankenstein into the sound. But I think over the last while, there's been kind of an unwritten focus on being more dynamic as a band, being more emotive, like having riffs that will like evoke a kind of emotional response. And with the new record, there's a lot of like melancholic kind of parts, some sad vibes that we're putting out there. So really, I feel like we've had the basic formula for writing a BDM song for a long time now. I mean, we're at 9 albums in, but it's really in the very small choices you can make. And, we tried to really have some fresh arrangements with this record and some fresh ideas as far as rhythm and groove. And in terms of pacing too, it's there's a couple songs that are a little bit more pulled back for us, a little bit more relaxed as far as like, we're normally in the red all the time, just like going as loud and as fast as we can. So with this record, we tried to be a little bit more dynamic in hopes that it would be more catchy and more lasting for people. And it seems to be like it's working out. Like there's just been a really great positive response so far. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, it's definitely has a great progression. It does, it's like you were saying, you're in the red on some of the previous albums, but then when you kind of got into this one, it seemed there was a lot of almost archaic and like I don't know, it was more of like a dark, nightmarish vibe. You know what I mean? It was really cool. Um, I didn't expect it, and I love it. I could say that.
I think that we're trying to be more textured in what we do, and to have the songs have more of a replay value, like maybe some things you don't hear immediately, um, and just really, trying to be as professional as we can. I feel like we're still growing as a band, even almost 20 years on, and this lineup is at we have a really creative vibe going on right now. And, I feel like this is just a testament to that. And we have such a great bond as a band right now that it's just been a really exciting era. And I think that this is kind of the fruit of that, and hopefully the beginning of more creative era for the band.
How do you approach the songwriting this time? Is it there a certain songwriting formula, kind of like what you just said, or does it depend on the time and the place?
There's a certain formula, really like it begins as a demo from either guitar player. They're like the sole music writers pretty much anymore. And we send the songs back and forth via emails, and we're kind of all spread out throughout the country anymore with where we live. So we're kind of used to this whole like internet era of doing things in this way. So it begins with a Pro Tools demo, and by the time I hear it, it'll have both guitars, it'll have a bass line, it'll have drums that are programmed that sound pretty realistic, and then from there, the drummer takes those drum tracks and kind of like starts from scratch with those as like the basic skeleton, but he programs like every single fill he's going to do on the record, which is an intense workload, for programming all so many drum hits and stuff. And then I get the song and sit in my underwear with it in front of the word processing program.
Awesome.
And just kind of vibe out. And I listen to the song and just try to take away like what kind of mood it sets, and I'll try to like write a lyric to match that mood basically. And I'll start my process with kind of just baby talking lyrics, like just kind of patterning like nonsense lyrics and recording it on the fly, and just kind of doing what comes natural first. And I'll do a few versions like that. Then I'll kind of Frankenstein my favorite parts together. And then I'll write the lyrics that I commit to like kind of fit in with those patterns. And it's difficult. It's a difficult road. It's a challenge for sure. But I think it gets the best results in like trying to make lyrics that sync up with every moment of the song, the ups and downs of the song. I want my story to kind of go through that same arc of dynamics. And I think it makes the songs more powerful when you have the lyrics right on time with the mood of the song. And it's kind of like a synchronicity when you get it all right that like makes it really powerful. So yeah, I enjoy writing for the band. I like I've always been a like kind of macabre guy with my interests in life. So I was drawing people getting their heads cut off in first grade in crayon pretty much. So this is definitely a good outlet for me creatively to kind of like flex my writing muscles. And I enjoy that some fans like go the extra mile and read the lyrics and get into it, and look to me to hopefully scare the pants off of them. That's definitely kind of an underlying goal for me to be creepy. And it's a hard platform to be creepy in anymore. Death metal is like it's not 1990 anymore. You know what I mean? Like I think that it kind of lost its punch a little bit to the internet era, and the violence that we're all exposing ourselves to, and the kind of gross shit that you see through like the internet exposure, it's kind of taken the piss out of death metal shock value a little bit, so it's definitely a challenge to be creepy in a scene that's creepy itself, like where that's like the norm. So I try to kind of put my own poetic spin on things, but for the most part, the topics that we tackle are very cliche, very classic metal tropes. And that's kind of the way I like it, I guess. I like, that the Black Dahlia is seen a lot as a entry level band for people like getting into the extreme. And I think we've been that, people's first band with gore lyrics, people's first band with blast beats, maybe. So I try to kind of stay the course with the themes that we do in terms of like what I like as a fan and what drew me into metal at 13 and had me like combing the death metal section at the record store, kind of drooling over the artwork and stuff. So I try to keep a lot of what we do very classic,
What does the title Verminous declare?
To me, it's saying that the hidden knowledge of the underground, like I look at like when you find death metal as kind of like an awakening, like it's like you peel the top off this hidden world and there's like so much to it that the outside world doesn't really see, kind of. So I'm saying that metal is like a plague of knowledge, and we are the rats and roaches and the kind of undesirable creepy crawlies that are spreading this plague, which is very timely for this whole coronavirus thing. Like oddly, we had no idea 2 years ago when we were writing this that it was going to sync up. So, you know, in such a way, but yeah, and I'm looking at it as like an anthem for the underdog, kind of like seeing us as being on the outskirts of society, like considered the pariahs with our weird shirts and black clothing and kind of love of the macabre. So in a way, it's kind of like an underdog battle cry, you know.
Why did you decide to record and produce on your own versus, going into the studio and having other people jump in?
I mean, we've always been very controlling in the studio, and we come very prepared. Um, every note, every nuance is written in the demo phase, and we come in like knowing exactly what we're going to do. So it was very natural to kind of like just trust in Brandon in this regard and record the bulk of the album like under his watch. And it honestly, like, it made for a more creative record. We had more time to tweak the little ideas, more time to sit on the album and listen to it back before committing to everything. And I just think it gave us a heightened freedom to be more creative and really see ideas through to a new height. So it's really the direction we've been going, honestly, over the last while. You know, we're very controlling in the studio, and we've never been quote unquote produced in the way that most people know it as, like where you go to somebody with your demos and they help you write melodies and help you rearrange the songs and blah, blah, blah. Like we're too anal retentive to like give someone that much control or like give someone that, I don't know. We're just really controlling of everything we've done. So it's very natural for us to keep it in-house, you know, and it's awesome to have Brandon be so studio savvy. And it's really given us a lot of, gave us a lot more power and a lot more control and time to really realize this album as like a more professional entity at the end, you know?
You could definitely tell too when somebody has outside opinions and control. It seems to water down some of the musicianship, I think.
I mean, it can, and I understand why certain bands go to producers, and there's a lot of great producers out there that I respect and, you know, that I think could do awesome things with us too, but it's just not really our style, you know, like we just, like I said, we come in with every song just so realized and ready to go that, yeah, there's not really room for that much middling, you know, but on the other side of the coin, we did definitely change some things here and there, little moments, added in a few more kind of like flair moments and cool ideas. And so, yeah, I'm very thankful for how this played out. And I think that this is going to be the standard for us from here on out.
How did the cooperation with Madsen and the mixing with Alan for the mastering occur?
We've had two Madsen on our short list for a long time, actually. Um, and I think that like being so based and influenced by European style death metal and like melodic metal, it's really natural for us to go to a European mixer and kind of get that like kind of like established classic vibe. And two, we've known through like doing The Haunted, and you know, like they're very much in the vein of Black Dahlia, I think, and one of our biggest influences. So, and he did Hate Sphere, that sounded great too, and they're also very similar kind of melodic death thrash band like us. So it was very natural to choose him. And Alan is an old friend of the band, and he's mastered a few of our albums early on. And we just found his masters to be so full and like beefy, and it was definitely cool to kind of go full circle and come back to Alan for this one. So I'm very happy with how it came out. We wanted to have a sound that wasn't too insanely overly polished, you know, but like try to keep it more like late 90s and mid 90s, back when before Pro Tools kind of took over. And you know, we kept the drums live. We didn't slide them onto the grid and make them perfect, you know. It'd be kind of an insult to the drummer's talent, I think, to kind of suck all the character out of his takes, you know. So, and we recorded instead of just cut and pasting one riff and pacing it every time, like the guys played through every song like all the way through, and like, you know, so each each take is individual, and that just makes the music more exciting to your ear if you don't hear the same exact shit just kind of refried later in the song. You know, it's just like very smart thinking on Brandon's part to really realize these kind of aspects, and that's the kind of little genius that we're dealing with him. He's very smart. He's very studio savvy, like I said, and an incredible songwriter. And he just thinks about things in a different way than we have. And he's brought so much to light for us. And he's been such a valuable asset that, yeah, man, it's just been a really, really great time having him aboard.
Yeah, I noticed that there's an organic feeling with this album versus like some other new albums that came out in 2020. And I could really appreciate that. Like you said, it brings back some of the dynamics from the 90s versus how things are rigid now, so to speak, you know? And yeah, it's definitely appreciated.
Right on, dude. Thanks. I feel like so many albums now are too rigid. Like everything is on the click, so there's no fluctuation, and it just sounds like machines playing it. And then, yes, it has the hugest guitar sound, but it's the same guitar sound everyone else has. Yes, it has huge drums because they sound replace the drums with like samples, but they use the same kits every time. So it's like all these new records, like, yeah, they sound like a bulldozer that runs you over, sure, but they all sound the same, and there's no dynamics. So like your ear gets tired after a while of just being beaten over the head with all these huge sounds, you know? So we kind of had to like have a conversation with ourselves, like what makes those 90s records so classic sounding? And that was it. It was just like they had their own personalities and they had imperfections, you know, like it was, so just keeping it more live like that was a really big revelation for us in the last few records.
What are your expectations from Verminous, sorry, and what do you wish to achieve with Pendragon over the next few years?
I think that like I said, Verminous is a new creative high for the band. I hope that people will see it as that, as a more creative album for us, and a bigger variety within the album. You know, that was kind of an underlying goal, to have more song styles and to have more just like individuality between the songs. So I'm hoping people are picking up on that. And yeah, man, I hope that like it'll see us through this whole virus thing and get us back on tour, hopefully with a lot of momentum. And yeah, I think this is the beginning of a really great era with this band. You know, I think that we have a lot more creative juice to flex in the future, and seeing that people are liking the sort of new directions we've kind of like been inching towards with this record, it's like confirmation that maybe we should take this further.
What will happen with all the postponed stuff? You know, I know you just brought up the coronavirus, so these are kind of two questions that fall into each other. What are you doing with the postponed US and European tour dates? Are you rescheduling them, or do you have anything to, update us on?
Well, the Testament tour is going to be rescheduled in time, but we're not guaranteed to be a part of it, unfortunately. They will be honoring the tickets that were already bought with their upcoming tour, whenever it shall be. And we're kind of like left to our own devices to kind of do our own thing. So we have a tour coming together for fall. Obviously, that's being pretty optimistic. You know what I mean? Like, I really hope that we can do it, but, who knows how long this is going to go. But beyond that, there's talk of a European tour for the winter, and then yeah, man, we're just trying to hit the ground running as soon as they'll allow us to, basically, and get back out there. And like, it hurts to not be on tour right now. Like, we're supposed to be on that Testament tour right now, which would have been the most high profile thing we'd ever been afforded as a band. So definitely hurts monetarily to just be kind of sitting here and just, to lose out on a big chunk of what our income would be for the year. So that kind of stinks. But on the other hand, like, to have the album drop right now when I think people need music right now, I think they need something to turn to be excited about. And the sales are going to suffer the first week, of course, because of like the lack of a tour and the lack of like open record stores. But I think just giving something to people to be excited about right now and to distract them from the shittiness of this whole situation, like, is powerful. And I think people are thankful for that. So I'm kind of seeing like a weird advantage in having music out right now, because pretty soon, um, records are going to stop coming out for a while. The plants are closed, recording facilities are closed. Like, so I look at it like as an advantage to kind of squeak one of the last new albums out for a while. And, people have nothing but time to kind of like sit there and fester on it. So I think in a weird way, it's going to come out as, advantageous for us somehow.
Well, I had the advantage, and also I was honored to be able to do a review on that album. And it's like 2020, definitely the first part of it with the albums that are dropping. Like you said, they're dropping at a good point right now, because even on social media with your new album, we see a lot of very positive things going on, and I think people are actually sitting down and listening to it, like you said, versus somebody throws it in their car on their MP3 player or whatever they're doing, and kind of ignoring it because there's hustle and bustle and they're busy, and there's just not a lot of attention to it. And I think this kind of gave it a chance, and I think you guys have a good niche right now. Well, and I hate to say it in the midst of something so horrible, but I think your album dropping when it did is it's a godsend,
Yeah, I'm definitely starting to see that aspect of it. And yeah, like you're saying, everyone's pace of life that they're used to is just gone right now. Like, everything is moving so slow, and you have nothing but time to like absorb art. And so it's kind of, in a weird way, the perfect time to have a new album.
Yeah, I mean, I even looked at, which is uncommon for me, even though I'm an artist, even looking at the album cover for you guys. I did a pretty in-depth look at that, and it's really cool. Um, and you
Hey,
said you do a lot of artwork, so
I mean, I'm always that guy for the band that selects the artists, and like, I'm kind of just in charge of the visual aspects of the band, and it kind of stems from like the lyrical themes, obviously. But I really enjoy that role. It's a challenge to find art that's going to like match our legacy that we've already kind of set forth. And now, like, it's so crowded with incredible art in extreme music right now. Like, there's so many talented artists. Like, it's kind of like feels like a renaissance in that way. So it's very competitive in a sense. Like, you have to have killer artwork. You know what I mean? Like, it sets the tone for the whole record. It gets people excited before they've heard one note of it, hopefully. So it feels good to like hit it right on the head once again. And I got to thank Juanjo Castellano for his great job on the artwork. And um, you know, it's a little bit classic. We definitely kind of aim for that kind of early death metal, evil environment kind of vibe. Um, and yeah, he just killed it, man. And it's definitely helped ramp up the excitement for everybody. And that's exactly what good art should do. And that's why you should want good art. It's powerful.
it stems, the artwork they have stems from like almost like a 90s vibe too, because back when Obituary and all the bands, even in the 80s, Slayer's albums, they always had some really really dark, macabre artwork, and it's nice to see that it traveled in time still, and it hasn't, it's almost like a timeless artwork,
That's how I look
and you
at it. I look at it as like honoring the old school and honoring like that kid in me that just was gawking at all the artwork at the record store, you know what I mean? And just kind of like, keeping it kind of, um, I guess, cliche in a way, but to me, it's more like traditional, you know what I mean? It's necessary.
So how'd you come up with the band name, other than the obvious, I'm sure, but Black Dahlia Murder?
Well, I mean, we were looking for something, again, like, it's a challenge to stir, like, to scare people in death metal. They're already used to the macabre. It's around them all the time. Like, everything about it is macabre. So I was really looking for a powerful band name that would have a kind of real world context that gave it a heaviness and kind of power to it. And when I learned about the case, it just honestly scared the shit out of me. And I was like, wow, this is it. Like, I consider myself pretty embroiled in the macabre, and it was enough to make me go, whoa, man, this is intense. And it's not really just the violence of it, but it's more about the weirdness surrounding the case and kind of like how people are still obsessed with it and people are still theorizing about it. And also, it kind of represents the death of the American dream in a way, because you have like this actress, the Black Dahlia, going to California with stars in her eyes and big aspirations. And then she's like cut down very cruelly and left to be found very blatantly. And it just symbolizes like the darkening of times, when it happened, kind of like it's just was a turn away from that like white picket fence kind of like mirage. You know what I mean? It just was a really eye-opening crime that just sent huge ripples throughout the world, and especially in the States. It has a really powerful context to it, So I was very thankful that the name hadn't been taken. I was very surprised too. And yeah, man, it's definitely it is a victim of like so many band names at the time were starting with the, and were very long. And like, the Dillinger Escape Plan was kind of like an influence on that tip, because they had like the whole real crime aspect to it that was cool. And I know having a band name that starts with the kind of like permanently puts us in that 2000s era. That's when we were born, so it's just there. But when the context of the name and know the crime, like, it has a certain weight to it, and like that's what we wanted.
Looking at like downloading and streaming, do you prefer that, or do you feel like having a physical CD or vinyl or whatever in front of you is more, for lack of a term, like just better? I mean, do you really like the streaming idea, or do you think that's an issue now?
I mean, I feel like it's just kind of what we have to deal with now. I like the ease of streaming. I do some of it myself too, but I'm also sitting in a room surrounded by 4,000 metal CDs. So like, I'm kind of stuck on that collecting aspect of metal. Like, I have CDs coming every week to my house. I still like keep my ear to the ground and check out new bands all the time. And but I understand why streaming is so popular. It's the ease of it, the kind of, just immediacy of it. I get it, and downloading too. Like, I do download stuff too. I look at it as like, it informs my purchases to check out new stuff. And, combing YouTube is another thing. Combing Bandcamp is another. And, like, as soon as I got a cable modem as a kid and was able to download, like, it just blew open the world of metal so wide for me. I was able to find so much great music, and then I would go buy it, and I'm surrounded by it. I'm sitting in a room just like full of my collection, which I really treasure. So I kind of see all sides of it, honestly. Like, I would prefer that everyone bought music and bought the physical copy. Of course, it would be helpful for us. Like, the world of music is still kind of measured by that bar of sales. You know what I mean? Which is kind of like an archaic way to look at it anymore, because of streaming is, so readily available and so prominent now that it's kind of like a weird archaic form of measure. So it still helps us a lot to make those physical sales, and it helps us show up in the eyes of the world, you know what I mean, and compete in this very kind of cutthroat world. But I'm thankful people just listening to the music. I don't really care how they get it into their ears, honestly. Like, as long as they like it, and as long as they're coming to see us on tour, and showing up in that regard, and that's where we we make the money that we survive on. You know, that's how we survive as a band, is like that whole, you know, getting paid for the show through the ticket sales and merch. And, you know, that exchange is really like the most important piece of this puzzle. So, you know, as long as people are getting the music and the end result is them becoming a fan and coming out to the concert, then I'm happy, you know?
So, and I'm actually really interested on the answer on this one. Which are the three best metal albums, or sorry, the three best extreme metal albums of all of time to you?
Oh, this is hard because I feel like there's about 15 albums that I wrestle with myself about, and every time I hear them, I go, "No, this is it," you know. But I gotta say, Suffocation, Pierce from Within. That was my very first death metal album that I bought, and yeah, I still think it might be the best one ever. It's so artistic, sounds so great, got awesome, timeless Scott Burns production there. Um, just very creative high for Suffocation, I think. Like their most professional album, I feel like. Um, Cannibal Corpse, it's kind of a toss up for me between Tomb and The Bleeding, but I gotta go with The Bleeding by a hair. I like how it's still is brutal, but a little bit more accessible. Like you can understand what he's saying. And I think that's awesome. Like it makes the song so hooky and catchy. And like for you to hear those crazy lyrics that he's writing come across for once, you know, was like very impactful for me and definitely like informed what I would do with Black Dahlia Murder. The kind of 3 minute story songs, you know, like a little bit of a horror comic strip aspect to them, just totally would write the book of what I would do with this band. And Morbid Angel, Blessed Are the Sick is my final pick. I definitely wrestle with that or Covenant as the best, but I think Blessed Are the Sick by a hair. I love how creative that album was. They just pushed so many boundaries with their creativity right from the get-go and kind of set the standard of how to be outside the box and how to be like kind of off kilter in an awesome way. And just they're like they just set the blueprint for creativity in death metal, and that album is just awesome. And David Vincent's vocal performance on it is just the stuff of legends, man. And I look to him for inspiration still all the time with every record we do, you know. But that to me is like just his like moment, you know.
Well, you pretty much nailed the last question right on the head. I was going to ask you about your influences, you know, just in the singing, songwriting aspects. I pretty much feel like you answered that just now.
Well, there's more to it. It's definitely those bands, but obviously Carcass is a super prominent influence for our band. One of my favorite bands. I mean, I have a Tools of the Trade tattoo on my arm. It was my first tattoo ever. Um, so necroticism and Heartwork especially are a big influence on the band. At the Gates obviously is I think where our biggest initial influence came from. And a lot of Swedish bands, In Flames, early Darkane, Dark Tranquility. But yeah, man, I'm always looking to the classics. I really take most of my influence from the classic records, and I try to look at like what made them so professional, what made them so gripping, what made them so timeless that they're still at the top of the heap. You know what I mean? Like, and kind of like try to embody that with what we do.
So now I want to dive into your Instagram photos.
Okay, sure.
All right. So the first one, and you know, there's not really, I'm not seeing anything other than DSBM on there, but it's a picture. I believe it looks like a bloody rag that's over, and you have your glasses over it. You might want to explain that to the listeners. So, because there's really nothing here.
I was drunk in the bus, and we were playing some metal, and I was just kind of wiling out and headbanging and jumping around, and I ended up kicking the corner of this cabinet with my bare foot, and it was bleeding like a sieve, like it was really coming out. And that rag was just like, I was just kind of wiping my foot with it after a while. And then I had it in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm going suicidal, depressive black metal right now. And they always have pictures where they're like covered with bloody gauze. And like, that's a very typical kind of thing to have that like suicidal swagger. So I put it over my face and put my glasses on. And there it was, man. Just another joke from Black Dahlia Murder. You know, like we're always joking around and having a good time. And it was my nod to suicidal, depressive black metal, kind of like Shining or Silencer or that kind of like very niche kind of scene.
I honestly, I just thought you were doing a really, really good impersonation of Corey Taylor and Slipknot.
Yeah, that was my mask.
Right? All right, so number 2, and it says, let me see here. It's a picture of you with your shirt over your head, and you have your glasses on over the shirt, just like the picture of the, the rag over your head. And it says business as usual. I hope to God that's not business as usual, but
It kind of is, man. If I'm partying, that's the mode I get into. It's like I pull my shirt over my head, I do something dumb, act like an idiot. It's what happens, man. But I don't know. Like I have a lot of fun in my life. I have a lot of fun with the band. I joke around a lot. I'm very kind of humor driven, even on stage with how we carry ourselves. And yeah, just kind of let that shine through in my social media, hopefully get a couple chuckles out of people. And like you saw earlier, my away message on Skype, it doesn't take a huge crap. That's just me. I'm still juvenile, like this lifestyle has kept me young. I'm almost 40, but I still feel kind of 15 years old upstairs. And, I'm thankful for this lifestyle, and like that it's kept me, I feel very free in my life to kind of be my own boss in a way. And to like live off of our art is such a huge compliment, and so exciting and so flattering that like I can't help but smile on stage. I can't help but like be happy with, it's like my disposition, I guess.
And the last one, it looked like it said something about being dated back to 2001. And it has to do with a pair of tighty whities.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That photo is from the very first ill-fated BDM tour. It was in 2001. The other guy in the picture is my friend Lucas. He was in the other band we were on tour with, and he did the internal art for Verminous, which is very awesome to kind of like come full circle with him after all this time. But it was like a jaunt to Chicago and Milwaukee, and we played a couple of basement shows that were very ill attended. Like, there was no demand for our band yet. Like we had no one knew who we were. So it was just kind of like a lofty dream to go on a little tour, It was fun, gave us a taste for wanting to do it more. And yeah, I used to wear tighty whities because they were hilarious, honestly. Like I used to get down to my underwear all the time and just be an idiot, even before I drank. Like, I don't know, I just like cracking people up. I like just like being a fool. I used to, before I had the heartburn tattoo on my gut, I used to often draw people's like a face on my gut, or just like, I don't know, like, I'm always doing something dumb like that. So yeah, me and my tighty whities back then was not a rare occurrence. And boxers are definitely more comfortable, but for a while there, I just stayed the course because they were like a joke in themselves. When people saw them, they would just like die laughing. So there it was, man.
Sure, as long as they're not like the SpongeBob SquarePants ones.
No, I never had any cool printed ones. I always just had like the blaring white one, that just made people laugh. So
Great. We'll look forward to that. Yeah. In closing, though, again, 10,000 thank yous for coming on. I appreciate it very much.
no problem.
if you have anything you want to throw out to your fans, by all means, do it now. I would love it.
Right on. Yeah, guys, I am breaking into the world of Twitch. My Twitch handle is just my name, Trevor Strnad, with no space. I post alerts when I'm going on all my social media, so you can catch it there. But yeah, I've been just streaming some old Nintendo games, which is where my heart is, and talking Metal Shop. Feel free to come ask me anything, joke around. It's been a blast so far hanging out with the fans. And yeah, I'm just trying to kind of stay omnipresent with the new record coming out. You know what I mean? Like trying to be everywhere on social media and be